Morning everyone. I wanted to record a video that I've been planning for quite some time, and that is how my thinking breakfast works, where it came from, why it works for me and how I do it. I'm in Dubai for all of this week, following up on a range of conversations that I've been having over the past couple of months, as well as running lots of things that are happening online in Ireland and beyond. So since I had the chance to get to an earlier time zone, I thought this is the right time to record this. So my thinking breakfast is something that I have been doing since 2021. It was my New Year's resolution then, and I practiced it for a week first in 2020 to see how it fit before taking it on as my New Year's resolution then. It is an absolute keeper. It's something that I do all the time, and I wanted to tell you about how it works. Okay, so first of all, I schedule time for this every morning, and I made it a habit by making sure that it wasn't a decision that I needed to make every day. So this is in my diary every morning from 8 until 9, and I just don't schedule anything else during that time, right? So no meetings, nothing, right? So I do plan between 8 and 9 every morning. Now I don't always get the chance to spend all of the time between 8 and 9 every morning on this, but it is something that is just, it's built in as a recurring time in the calendar every day, without fail. Now, what I do then is that I focus on something that I need to think about, and that is important because I don't allow myself, and here's where the discipline steps in, I don't allow myself to just get back to an email or just get back to my Slack messages or smaller things. And where I got this thinking from was the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. What I do is that I make sure and I focus on something during my thinking breakfast that will move the needle. Something that I need the space to think about, that needs that extra thought, that needs that scheduled time. That is what it needs to be. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes that is hard. It's enjoyable, but it's hard, and it's easy to, it's the things you procrastinate about. It is what's in the important and not urgent part of the Eisenhower matrix. That's what needs to go in there. And I do make sure that if I feel myself kind of just slipping back into an easy thing, a thing that will give me dopamine or something that will just make me feel like I'm doing something, that's where I need to have, certainly, I need to have the discipline. Often I have something to think about. So it could be that proposal that I need to think about, or it could be the presentation that I'm working on, or a conversation that came up, or like, for example, I took my thinking breakfast last Thursday morning thinking about all that I wanted to achieve this week while I'm out here in Dubai. Or it could be somebody said to me recently, if you were to share everything that you do in relation to diversity and inclusion and young people within Savvy Teens, what would that be? That's another thing that I was thinking about. Today it was, how can I turn around a proposal that I'm working on with an organisation about developing out a content suite? So a range of different things like that. But as you can see, they're not short term, they're all significant. Sometimes I don't have anything to think about. And in that case, I use an app called Rocky.ai as a journal coach. So that's when Rocky.ai will ask me questions that I need to think about, like what do I really want to achieve today, or what specific blockage do I want to deal with? Or now, it's not all, necessarily questions as soft as that. They can also be very technical as well, around what 5 key things do you need to do in order to move the dial today. Or so Rocky.ai is something that it is deep learning, so it does build on what I have told it over time, and it will hold me accountable as well. It will say, 2 weeks ago you said this, how are you getting on in that now? But when I don't have anything to think about, that's what I do. Or also if I'm feeling stuck, if I feel like I have 5 things to think about and can think of none of them, that's also when I turn to Rocky.ai. Also, I will say sometimes I have my thinking breakfast with others. So this morning I'm having it with Carol Glynn from Conscious Finance Coaching, who I'm out here working with this week. So we're sitting down and we're talking through a range of things that we've been having conversations about in the previous couple of months that we want to make more tangible now. So sometimes I have it with my staff as well. I might sit down with them between 8 and 9 and say, how are we going to build on the thing that we've been talking about for a while? So sometimes I do have it with others. Again, but the same discipline applies. It has to be about that specific topic. It has to be about something that would tick a deep work type box. And sometimes people ask me to think about things on their behalf. So sometimes I'll have a conversation with people who know that I do this as a regular practice, and they'll say, could you think about this for me, Susan, and come back to me and maybe we can build on it together. Now, it's not something that I do all the time for people. It's not that I do this necessarily as a favour for people, unless, of course, they ask me if they're really stuck on something and they want to apply my thinking with them. But I do certainly get asked that from time to time, all right, where we might be at the early stage of a collaboration or at a stage where we've completed a project now and we want to think about the next one. Say, Susan, will you spend a thinking breakfast on this and come back to me? That's the language that they use around it, all right. The other thing that I will say is, people often ask me, do I do it with internet or not? No, a lot of the time. And today is a case in point. I'm recording this now on the phone. I haven't had the Wi-Fi on at all this morning during my conversation with Carol or while I was even preparing for this video. No, I don't. A lot of the time I don't. But other times I will only switch it on. I'll only pick up the phone if I need to look up something that will help me along the way, or think back to a communication that I've had with somebody or something else like that. That's usually it. But ordinarily it's me, a pen, and I will tell you what I write on as well, because that's also a critical part. That's it. That's most of the time what I do focus on. Another thing that people ask me about is do I do it all the time? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, I do it all the time. And the reason I can tell you this, and the reason I'm recording this now after a few years of doing it as opposed to a couple of months in, is because I know what it's like when I don't, and I feel a deficit. I know what it's like if I'm super busy on something and maybe I have to commute somewhere during that period of time, or maybe I'm working internationally where 8 to 9 is a time that I need to be in a meeting with someone, and maybe because of due to the time zone, if I get up even earlier again, well then I'm cutting into sleep or something else like that. So I know what it's like when I don't do it for a couple of days in a row, and it feels like I'm in a deficit. It feels like I'm missing out, and I am. Because I'm missing out on the thoughts that are in my head that actually can really make a difference. So yes, I do it all the time. If I can't do it at breakfast, I will do it at another stage in the day. Not in the middle of the day. I find there's too much going on. It's very hard to think in the middle of the day when I'm doing what I say I'm going to be doing. I do find that I might take myself out for a coffee at the end of the day, or it might be something, let's say again, if I'm traveling and I'm out for dinner on my own and I'll sit down with the instruments that I'm about to tell you about in a little while, that's when I do it. But I do it all the time. All the time. Because if I don't, my body and my mind tell me I'm not, and I'm certainly missing out. I also think, as I think back to how I've implemented it, right, when I think about, first of all, it's really enjoyable. I love breakfast. I love the start of the day. I love the promise of the start of the day. And I'll typically go out for breakfast to do it, or I will go into a different room at home where I will bring breakfast in with me or something. I don't do it in my office, by the way, at all. Jeez, no. I always have to be away from where, this is strategic thinking as opposed to operational implementation. My office and where I am on site is where I do things, not where I think. But first of all, it's enjoyable. Second of all, it's a total habit by now. First thing I do in the day is scheduled into the diary. It delivers me enormous benefit, all those sorts of things. It's actually a really good case of Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you haven't read the book already, or maybe checked it out before, it's a case in point of that. Now, I do want to talk about where the benefit comes from. Writing down my ideas is going to be absolutely useless unless I implement them. And that's the other part, is sometimes I find when I do this every day, is that then the ideas can back up and I have to find the time to implement them. That was actually the harder part as this started to work. I was really delighted with what was coming out of my head, but of course I needed the time and the structure and the staff and the implementation to make sure that I actually followed through on it. And that's something that I needed to work into the day as well, is when was I actually going to get time to do what was coming out of my head. The last thing that I want to mention are these napkins. I write in them all the time. So often I'm in a cafe or a coffee shop and someone said, sorry, do you want paper? And I'd say, actually no, I'm fine. I write in a napkin all the time. The reason is it's always there in front of you. If you go out for breakfast, you will find that they're there in front of you. The reason that I don't write them in a notebook is because a napkin feels temporary. It feels like I don't necessarily have to commit to what I'm writing down. And you might say, well, what's the point then? Is I feel I need that freedom. I need the freedom to write, not necessarily what's always realistic, but what I'm actually just giving myself the freedom to think what if we were to do this, if we were to do that, imagine if this wonderful opportunity conspired to happen. And I need the freedom of that without always feeling accountable going back and implementing them, because that's where the freedom appears. So that's why I write in a napkin. There's something temporary about it. Also the feel of it. triggers my brain that this is your thinking time now, Susan. And that's why my diary is full of napkins. That's the reason that I do it. So I sit down, commit to it every day. I'm going to write down, I'm going to think and dream and so on, find the time to implement it afterwards, do it all again tomorrow, and then I also reap the rewards along the way. So I hope my thinking breakfast is something that can be of benefit to you too. Have a great week.